It's The Journey with drug and alcohol attorney Mark G. Astor.
All right, everybody. Happy Friday. See, I got it right. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of The Journey Live, and I'm super excited to have a very special guest, Heather Ann Adams. Welcome.
Thank you.
And she is a clinical outreach person for Destination Hope, which is a really cool substance use and mental health program down in Broward County. And not only that, she's just a really amazing person. And I'm going to tell you right now, she's a grandmother. I know it's hard to believe. I couldn't believe when she told me. Unbelievable. She's amazing. And I'm so happy that you came on. Thank you.
Thank you for asking for the opportunity. This is awesome.
Are you relaxed?
I'm excited.
She's excited. I love it. It should be exciting. This is a fun thing. This is something that we love doing, and it's a way for me to really get people that I know, love, and trust in our industry to come on and talk about what they do and share their experience, and maybe we motivate one person to get their loved one into treatment, which is really what it's all about. Mm-hmm. So you work at Destination Hope. Tell us a little bit about their program, and then I want to talk about you, because that's really what it's all about.
Okay.
Right?
So they've been open almost 12 years. They have 4 different programs. So it's a behavioral health program, essentially, is as a nutshell. We have a full continuum of care from detox all the way residential, PHP, IOP, OP. But our niche is really the mental health. So our Sylvia Braffman program is a primary mental health program. No substance at all is required to go there. So we can treat everything from schizophrenia, schizoaffective, bipolar, anxiety, depression, PTSD. We're also gender specific. So we split up. The boys and girls go to different treatment programs. And then we also have a substance abuse program that is more heavy on the dual side.
Right, so what's really what we love about your program here with our team is the fact. Oh my goodness, so close. Is the fact that you can treat like the mental health issues, right? So
yes. I
know a lot of treatment centers will treat a dual diagnosis person, mm-hmm. where substance use is primary, mental health is secondary. But what you have is a standalone facility. If somebody has either primary mental health or, I guess, mental health as a standalone, you guys can handle it, right?
Correct. Yes.
Is there a special licensing or certification you need to be able to do that?
Well, there's Joint Commission, and then we're in the process of getting our ACA license for our residential program.
Okay. What's ACA? You don't have to give me the definition, but is it a specific license
for mental health?
For mental health. Okay. So
we're in the process of that right now, since we just opened a residential program. Right.
So I know that with the substance use, there's sort of different levels, like residential, you've got intensive outpatient, partial hospitalization. Do they have the same with the substance use programs? Is that how it works? Or is it
correct. It's the same layout.
Okay.
We have a residential, partial hospitalization with community housing, and then intensive outpatient with transitional living.
Wow, okay. So how long have you been with Destination Hope?
This month is 2 years. So the 21st will be my 2-year anniversary.
Wow.
And I love it. I love the team that I work for and the company. I believe they do really, really good work.
It's a great program, and we love it, especially for the guardianship clients, Mm-hmm. I mean, where the choices seem so much more limited than if you have just this, primary substance use or just that substance use.
Right.
So let's go sort of way back in time, because you have a very cool story, which it's funny because I've known you a couple of years now, and I didn't really know that much about you, and you shared your background, and I was like, wow,
yeah,
that's really cool. So let's go way back when, because I know I talked about the fact you have 2 grandchildren, right?
Yes.
You have children. Okay, so how did all this start, right? Because you have a very cool story, and I want you to share that with us, because that's what makes you so special.
But where do you want me to start?
Start at the beginning, right? So where'd you grow up, right?
Okay, I'm a Floridian, very rare breed. I'm from a small town, Stewart, born and raised the first 30 years of my life there. I have 4 children, and as you just said, I have 2 grandchildren. I started using drugs when I was about 15, and for me it was like I say it's the gateway drugs, because it started with the weed and the alcohol, and then it progressed into other things more and more over the years. Short but fast, spiraled down.
And we talked about the whole marijuana thing, because I said to you, when I was a kid growing up, I mean, I knew friends that smoked weed. I mean, it wasn't for me, but I had friends that did it, and I think only maybe 1 or 2 ultimately ended up going really sort of way out of left field. But it just seems like when we talk about marijuana, when you and I were younger and these kids were using as opposed to what they're using today, it seems like there's just a huge difference, because I see kids whose parents call me, they say my child's using marijuana and they're suffering from paranoia and delusion, and it just sort of spirals out of control. I mean, do you think there's a big difference now from
Absolutely. Back then there was like two kinds. There was like skunk weed and ragweed. Those were the two choices you had, and then it started to progress into more like hydroponic type of stuff. But today, I mean, there's like a smorgasbord of whatever kind you want, and I think people's chemistries is reacting differently.
Yeah, I mean, and today,
it's so much stronger.
Who knows
today.
even what it's even laced with? I mean, I know that's been a big problem too. I mean, they're putting in all kinds of, he's going to tell me the same too, don't worry. There's also kinds of crazy stuff that's being put in, not just the marijuana, but the coke and the heroin. And I mean, it's
right,
really...
Now you have the oils and the edibles. I mean, there's like so many things. My teenage boys are schooling me on what's out there today, and I'm just floored.
We had a couple of weeks ago, we had Don Maines in here. I don't know if you know Don, but
I do.
Yeah, Don is like, I mean, I've never heard anybody... He might know more about street drugs than anybody I've ever heard speak.
He's amazing.
He's really amazing. But he was telling us, it's like every time they outlaw something new comes along, right? Something,
right.
Some other kind of...
Right, they just changed the one dynamic.
I know.
And the chemistry.
And apparently...
And it's not legal because they don't know what it is.
Is it a cartridge? The little thing that looks like a flash drive you'd put in a computer, but I guess the kids are injecting those things with some type of oil that's marijuana laced.
THC oil.
And they're smoking it. I mean,
right.
You can't tell what it is.
And some of them, they're odorless.
It's really scary.
So, like, my teenage boys have told me before that, like, there's kids that, like, will, smoke, and nobody knows they're doing it because it's odorless. That's like, whoa.
Unbelievable. so, going back to you, the marijuana thing, why do you think you started to smoke? Was it just a peer pressure thing, or it's the cool thing to do?
Yeah, it was a high school thing. It was what everybody was doing. You go to parties and you'd smoke and you'd drink and that kind of stuff. I hung out with a lot of surfers, and that was their thing, that they did, and so it was like everybody was doing it, So curiosity, I guess.
Okay, so tell us about how things progressed.
So then it just led onto other things. There was acid that came into play, and it became more like as the era. So whatever decade was happening, that was what was going on, It's
like the whole Studio 51 era, right? I must have led a very quiet, conservative life. That's what happens when you're the oldest child.
Well, I was the oldest, but I was a little wild, It was the wild flower in the family.
Okay, so
it, it led... as I was talking to you earlier, like it went from where I would do one thing and then I would meet people that were doing other things, and what seemed like something I wouldn't do ever in my life prior, now it didn't seem so bad hanging out with them because they seemed like they were all right, and then it made me curious to try other things, and then that led to other people and just so on in that party world. Yes. As I call it, because it was a party for a while until it wasn't anymore. And somewhere in that journey, I crossed this imaginary line. And I don't know what year it was or what chemicals I was putting in my body, but at some point it went from a party to like a living hell type of situation.
Wow. Okay. So I know at some point you got married, right?
So yes. So I married a drug dealer. Seemed like a good idea at the time. And he introduced me to a whole nother world, and we were very involved in the underground rave scene in like the mid-90s.
Did they have that here in Florida?
They
who knew?
Yeah, Orlando and Fort Lauderdale and Miami, they were like popping these clubs, and they would go, it would be like earlier in the night it would be alternative music, and then around 1-2 o'clock in the morning it turned into this whole nother scene of people that would show up. We call them the freaks because everybody was of all kinds, dressed, big baggy jeans, and it was just a dance showdown for hours until the sun came up. But it was like lots of drugs. It was ecstasy and all of that kind. I guess they call it Molly now, but there was that whole scene, and it seemed like I had arrived. Like it was just like a big fun party, and if you couldn't dance, it didn't matter. You fit in, and everybody just fit in. There was whistles blowing and people yelling. It was just fun.
So how old were you when you got married?
I was 21.
Okay, so are you working during the day and partying at night? Tell me how.
Yes. So my life consisted of a daytime job, total chameleon.
What did you do?
And then I worked in the medical field for 18 years. I was a medical assistant. Family practice for a lot of years. And then 10 years prior to me coming into this industry, I was in cardiology.
So you got to wonder how you're able to function, right? I mean, are you going out every night and partying, or is it?
No, it started with the weekends, and then, I had a child when I was 18 years old, so she would go to her dad's for the weekends, and that would be when I would go party. And then it slowly started turning into maybe one day during the week, when she'd go to sleep, and then just over time it became more and more days were getting blurred together, but it was always at night because I needed to maintain. I had this facade that I had to put on, for the rest of the world. I was probably only lying to myself, though.
I mean, some people have told me when it came to the whole issue of drugs and things like that, they sort of needed to, even while they were able to function during the day, they sort of needed to use it a little bit during the day, or a lot of it during the day, just to be able to function.
Yeah, well, that came over time too. Okay. So my ex-husband, he broke his neck in an automobile accident, and we were introduced through a doctor to Oxycontin. And this is probably like 1996, 97, something like that. We didn't even know what they were. We just figured they were like Percocets or something, and
so it was a pain medication.
A pain medication, but it's much more than a pain medication. But we didn't know that at the time, and it's very, very addicting. And in a short period of time, we were both addicted. I didn't need them; he did. And probably within like 2 weeks, I was totally addicted to them, and I needed them every day.
Well, okay, so you yesterday when we talked, you sort of described, what it made you feel like.
Very euphoric, very dreamlike state, kind of like you'd have like nods, where you would just be really relaxed. Just a very euphoric type of feeling, and there was no pain, no thoughts of anything bad.
Okay, so are you doing just the oxys, or is there other stuff too?
There were other pills that were involved too. So I believe that like the whole ecstasy era of trying that made it more comfortable to try pain medications, because I was already had done those kind of pills. So these are prescribed. They can't be that bad.
They're probably safer, right?
Correct.
You'd think, right? Because a doctor gives them to you, they're safe.
Right. And, and even Purdue, he was on I didn't even tell you about this. The Purdue company, he was on a financial assistance program where they would be delivered to the house.
Purdue company. Okay.
So the big pharma. Purdue is the maker of...
The chicken guy?
Oxycontin. No, it's a pharmaceutical.
The pharmaceutical company.
Yep.
Okay. There's Purdue chickens and there's Purdue Pharmaceuticals. Can I tell you? I mean, all right, so we're talking about Purdue Pharmaceuticals. These are the guys that are pumping out loads and loads of pills.
Right.
Chicken guy. I don't know what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And
maybe I need a pill. Anyway.
So there were other things, too, because he was, there was Xanax, and, they're like anti-anxiety medication, and they make you very sleepy and make you forget everything. Like you literally can't remember anything that you did, the next day.
So, how are you able to function during the day at work?
Well, I limited it to nighttime.
Okay.
Because I couldn't have my slip showing at work. But over time, like, my slip started to show. And it became very, very difficult to have day and night not bleed together.
Did anybody at work question you?
Oh, yeah. I had lost jobs.
Okay, so they realized you were having a problem at work.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Did they know why, or they just said, "Listen, you're showing up late. You're not doing your job."
Yeah, no, it was very painfully obvious that there was something going on. Other than I was sleepy, which was my excuse. But I had lost a few jobs. Because of my addiction and the night turning into the day, per se. And it became very difficult to just do it at nighttime and not during the daytime as, my addiction progressed.
Okay, so at some point I know that marriage ended, right?
That marriage ended. Yep. After I had 2 babies with him, my twins. And I shortly after that, like I really went downhill after that marriage ended. And I wasn't able to get the oxys like from, because he was prescribed them, and they became very expensive. And so then I had met people, like I told you before, you meet people as you're in this little world that do things. And so I had met some people that were doing heroin, and it was equally the same type of high, only a lot cheaper. And so for the last year before I got clean, that's what I was using heroin. And that really brought me down to my knees really, really fast. I went from not being able to be employable anymore to like, this was what I did. Like, finding ways and means to get more.
Yeah, and I've heard people say that before, that, the heroin gives you the same feeling as the oxys, right? But it's a whole lot cheaper and probably a whole lot easier to get a hold of. Mm-hmm. Except these days, I know we're having issues with, fentanyl being in there, and, one hot dose and whoosh,
right.
It's over.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, and I had even, there was no fentanyl at this time in the heroin, but I had overdosed 6 times.
Okay, so we'll talk about that, because that was one of the things that sort of precipitated you getting clean, right? Mm-hmm. So I know at some point there was a second marriage. That happened before or after the overdoses?
After. That was when I
okay, so let's talk about that. So your overdose, and tell me about that. I mean, I don't need you to describe each one, but I mean, there was a pattern where you were pretty much overdosing on a regular basis.
Right. The last 6 times that I used before I had surrendered to, like, I didn't want to do this no more. I had fell out. That's what was called back then. You'd fall out, and I turned blue. A few times 911 was called, and
I think when you're turning blue, you're dying. I think that's what's happening.
Oh yeah. But the problem was, when I would come to, I wouldn't even remember I wouldn't have known anything that happened. So the people really around me were the ones that were traumatized. I didn't know what had happened. I just woke up. And so I went and did it again. And each time I did it, my body must have been saying, we don't want this no more, because I kept overdosing. And then I had a seizure at one time also. And so that was sort of basically the driving force, was that I didn't want to leave my children an orphan, and I really didn't want to do this anymore. It was at a point where it totally controlled me.
Must have been blowing through some serious money as well.
Well,
no?
Yeah, and I had, I would hang out with people that were far worse off than I was, so I didn't feel like I could justify it, that I wasn't as bad as they were. And they had these like little rings of how they would figure out how to make money during the day to get more. And I was the car driver, because I had a car, and that was how that went. But I didn't like who I was anymore.
Was it tough to be a mom and deal with that stuff?
Yeah, I couldn't do it anymore. I mean, I did the best that I could at that time to provide for them, but I was not present for them emotionally. I wasn't a good mother during that time of my life at all. I just didn't know how to be. That consumed everything of me. And so I had asked my mom if she would help me so that I could, go somewhere and get some help. I didn't even know what that looked like, because I didn't know anybody that had help.
So we're talking like 15 years ago, right?
May 1st will be 15 years.
Okay, so
yes.
I mean, South Florida's really become sort of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, the sort of treatment capital, certainly of America. Back then, were the resources available like they are now?
No, it was nothing like it is today. There was, there were a few in town, that are still here today, but there wasn't. There was 4 or 5 maybe from Palm Beach down, and I ended up being able, because I had no resources. I was now homeless, living out of my car for 2 weeks, and I called DAF, which is
the Drug Abuse Foundation in Delray here, which is still there.
Yeah, which is still there.
Yep.
And I am so grateful for that place, because I had nothing. And back then you could call and they could tell you if they had a bed. They don't do that today, because it's...
Well, these days they're overwhelmed.
Correct.
I mean,
Correct.
good luck getting a bed. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's the truth.
Right. There's like a waiting list, and the jails supersede, getting beds there than the outside. So anyway, I was able to go there for a detox, and then I thought after that, well, maybe I'm going to get to go to treatment somewhere, and there was nowhere for me to go. I mean, there was a waiting list. So I went to like a sober living type of environment with all women. And that's really where my journey started in recovery.
Right. So one of the things that you shared with me yesterday was the whole, because I said to you, well, did you know? How'd you really get clean? And you said that the meetings really helped you.
Yeah.
Which I think is really, important because, I mean, the work that we do is really, we're getting people into treatment. Maybe it's 90 days, maybe it's 6 months, whatever it happens to be. But the people that I see that are in long-term recovery, and we have lots of friends that are in long-term recovery, or even years after that, they are continually working at it.
Yeah.
They're going to meetings. They have a sponsor. I mean, whatever it is, if they feel that sudden urge, they're reaching out to somebody for a little support. I mean, to me, addiction is a bit like having cancer. Except instead of going to recovery, you go into remission, right? But you still have to work at it. I mean, you can't just go back to your old lifestyle and expect to stay cancer-free. Or if you want to, it's like exercise, right? You got to do it on a regular basis or you go out of shape. So I know that one of the things that you share with me is that, when we spoke, you're like, oh, I just came from a meeting on the beach. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing, right? So clearly you still work at it. And that is amazing.
I mean, I'm going to have this for the rest of my life, So I have to, one of the things when I first got surrendered and came into recovery is that I would listen a lot, and I would hear people say like things that they've done and continue to do, and then if you get in the middle and stay in the middle, you won't fall off. So like I've done to the best of my ability to stay in the middle, throughout these last 15 years, like because I have a better life today. And it didn't happen right away. Like I had nothing when I got here. But I believe that there was some kind of higher power guiding me and protecting me from myself at the beginning. And I've just stayed. And really the steps have been,
So tell me about that, because I know that we hear about the 12 steps. And so tell us a little bit, because you obviously you didn't have the ability to basically go into treatment for 90, 180 days. So tell us about how you did it. And again, I mean, it's just what worked for you, but I mean, clearly these are important steps that you got to do at some point, right? And
right.
You probably should keep doing if you're going to stay in recovery.
Right. I started attending meetings every day, and that built like a pattern.
When you say a meeting, tell me what's that involved? Because I hear people say I went to a meeting, but tell me what that involves.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk on any particular fellowship that I'm in because
but generally,
that would violate my tradition.
No, it's okay.
But, they're generally an hour to an hour and a half long, and they're people just like me, and we just share what's going on in our lives, and for some reason there's some kind of therapeutic value of doing that we're able to help each other. I didn't do this by myself at all. There was a God loving me, and then there was the people in the rooms that just helped me feel not alone, and there was hope through that. And so I started going to meetings every day, which then it became a part of my life, and I never stopped doing that. And then I got a sponsor, and I feel that a sponsor is really the heartbeat of this thing, because there was many years ago there was these 12 steps that were laid out for us by our predecessors, and they've healed me truly from the inside out and made me continue to want to be a better person. And I fall short. Yeah, I make a lot of mistakes. I've made lots of mistakes.
I think we all do. That's how
I continue to.
That's how you get better at anything. So
I'm making new mistakes now.
It's okay. So tell us. I mean, you've been with Destination Hope 3 years, right? 2. So I mean, what inspired you to say, oh, I'm going to work in the treatment industry now?
Well, I worked in, like I said before, I worked in the medical field for a lot of years, and it was I thoroughly enjoyed helping people. And I always, even when I worked in cardiology, the elderly people would come in and they would tell me everything about their life except their heart. And so I just loved that. I just loved being able to just be there and help people.
You're a good listener.
It just makes me feel good. That's what gave me
because you're helping people.
Right. And when the opportunity presented itself, I had gotten a divorce, and so there was a lot of change happening in my life, and there was an opportunity for me to change careers and do this field. And I had friends that were already doing, this line of work, and they loved it, and they were, felt really good about themselves, and they were doing it. It was the same thing. It was just helping in a different way, but in a way that I already knew anyway, because I was that girl that was suffering from addiction. And then on top of it, I had been married a second time to somebody, in my recovery for a lot of years, and he relapsed after having, long-term recovery. And so now I understood what it was like for the families of the person. So I felt like I had something to offer in helping people, by knowing both sides of the fence.
Very often, we hear about, I know from my experience when I speak to parents, they call it a family disease, right? And it really does. Mm-hmm. It does horrible things to the family. And in fact, the person who's sort of the addict, for lack of a better word, we should use that term, but that's what, when you got someone's child, who's dealing with these issues and they're in denial, it's almost like the family suffering, but their child isn't. They're suffering, but they don't know they're suffering because they're in denial. They said, there's nothing wrong with me. But it's the parents who are really stressed out. Not just emotionally, but physically and financially. And so,
Right. And that's another thing that we offer at Destination Hope is every week we have family night on the 2 different nights, and we bring in a family therapist that leads it, and it's just a really, really good turnout, and then they're able to process it the next day in group, because this is a family disease and everybody's affected, and at some point they are going to go back home to their lives, and everybody needs some healing through that.
I think
it's a lot of information that's provided and given in support.
I know. So I know that you work for Destination Hope, but I know that you're involved in the community, right? I know you're doing stuff with women, empowering women.
I am.
All right, so let's talk about that. We're going to give them a little push, because it's a great organization. So tell us about WEW.
So Women Empowering Women, our founder, Amanda Marino, this started with her childhood girlfriend, Kim Kinkle, had died of a drug overdose.
I've seen the video. It's unbelievably moving.
Oh,
and I've met Mr. Kinkle.
And that
my
was
God.
from, one of her boyfriends in the past had taken that over the years, and very moving, yes. And her dad is amazing too. So shortly after she had passed, Amanda wanted to do something in honor of her, and so she started these luncheons where we would bring in, people would host it, and we would bring educational speakers in, and, we would charge a fee, and all of the money would start. We collaborated with Palm Beach State College at that time, and would start raising money to help a woman in recovery to be able to go back to college, which for me really meant a lot, because I had went back to college when I had 6 months into my recovery journey, and I was like upside down. Like I didn't know how to do this. I didn't know how to balance life and recovery and kids and school, and it's still a work and a job. And so this we have a mentorship that's attached to it. So we have women that mentor the women that get these scholarships, or women that are already enrolled in school that need that extra support, almost like a sponsor in a sense, but through school. To help them be successful. So it's grown over the last 3 years and now we went from the original 5 board members to, I believe there's 15 board members now. We're now officially a nonprofit, and we're expanding to be able to provide schooling not just at Palm Beach State but at other colleges, and maybe down the road throughout the country. So it's something that really is meaningful to us.
It's fantastic. I went to the so I know that once a year you have the Boys and the Girls Day, right? Where
yes.
Men get to go, and I think the last time I was there had to be at least 200 people in the room. It was packed. We did it up. I guess it was over at Origins at Hanley, up in West Palm.
Centers where we have our lunches.
And it was it's literally standing room only.
Yeah, and that's how it was the first year too. So it just has, I feel like it has God all over it, and Kim winking down, at Amanda and everything that she's, had this vision for in honor of her, because it like means something, you know. So once a year, like you were saying, in October, we give away, bi-monthly is when we do these luncheons, and then once a year we have the big scholarship giveaway. And this past year we were able to give 2 scholarships away.
It's amazing.
To 2 women, and so that it's just a real good feel-good feeling, you know, to do that. And now we're expanding. We're going to have a fashion show that the boys are allowed to attend in September. I forgot what we have. We have these round tables that are going to be taking place. There was one recently in Palm Beach, and now there'll be another one in Broward. So check out Women Empowering Women.
Yeah, how do they find you? What's the website?
Our website is womenempoweringwomenpb.com, and then we're also on Facebook, Women Empowering Women.
All right, so I want to know, before I let you go, I want to know what you do like for like peace and serenity. Like, is there anything you do? I mean, because you have a very busy, full life between kids, grandkids, Destination Hope, the Women Empowering Women. I mean, meetings. I mean, what do you do? Is there any time that you can just shut down?
Well, no, but I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it's very hard for me to relax. You know, I don't know.
I know how that goes.
We were discussing that, like, you don't know how to stay still. Forget about it when I go on vacation. It takes me a whole day just to like be, not feel like I have to be moving all over the place.
Well, I feel, at least for me as a lawyer, I wasted so many years where I wasn't helping anybody. I'm like, just turned 52. I don't have time now. I got to, make up for lost time, So on the weekends when we're, because I think I told you I worked the weekend, which is not unusual for me to work at least one day on the weekend. I'm like, I'm happy to do it because I don't want to wait. The time for playing, was sort of in my past when I was experiencing my own personal growth and frankly getting my head out of my ass. You know what I mean? I told you we could curse on this show, right? I told you it was allowed. I don't think the FCC is going to come down here, or the FTC, whoever regulates all this stuff, is going to come down and arrest me. Well, maybe they will.
Yeah, sometimes they slip out with me.
What are you going to do? Today. It's okay. They say people that curse and can't sit still and don't sleep well, apparently we're supposed to be very smart. I don't know if that applies to me, but anyway, it definitely applies to you. So I want to, if when folks hear the show, how do they get a hold of you? How do they find Destination Hope? How do they reach out to you?
So I'm available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They can reach out to me directly. My cell phone number, I can give that, is 561-305-9462. My admissions is 1-888-991-3066. Our website is destinationhope.com. So please feel free to reach out with any questions, concerns. If you have anybody you know that is in need of our services, whether it's, the mental health or the substance abuse, because, we want to raise awareness. We are in a crisis. Their suicide rate is up. And, the epidemic of all the overdoses, I just being able to have a resource and know as many people as we can, to help the people that are suffering and those that are suffering in silence. Because the days of, brushing it under the rug and not wanting to talk about it, those are done.
Yep.
There's no shame in getting the help that you need today.
No, in fact, if anything, I mean, I always tell parents, because, sometimes there's some guilt, right? Oh, I don't want to put my child into treatment. They'll hate me. I'm like, if something happens to your child, you'll hate you. I mean, I get that your child's mad at you, but I'd rather have your child mad at you and alive than, God forbid, either dead or in prison. That, to me, is far worse. And I know it's tough. So I'm really happy you came on the show. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for asking.
Sharing your
This
personal
is,
story. I told you it was going to be easy, right?
Yeah, it was easy. I was excited and nervous at the same time because, outside of, my recovery, I don't usually talk about my journey too much and, where I've been and what I've done. But it's given me the opportunity to be able to do things like this, to have a career today, to be a mother to my children, and to
You're an
be
inspiration.
a
I love it.
And
I've learned so much about you.
Grateful.
Not that I didn't, but I feel like I have a new sort of love for you.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great. All right, guys. The show, you can find our show on the drugandalcoholattorneys.com website. We're on Facebook under the Drug and Alcohol Attorneys page, the Mark Giasta page. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. I mean, we're everywhere. And if you need to get a hold of me, if only because they want to get a hold of you, which would be a good idea if you've got substance use or mental health issues, drugandalcoholattorneys.com. You can go to the website and send me an email, or you can just email me directly, which is mark@drugandalcoholattorneys.com, or you can just call our office, 561-419-6095. And a bit like you, I always tell people, if I'm awake, I'll answer the phone. If I don't answer, I'm either in with somebody or I'm asleep. One of those two things. And
yeah, leave a message.
yes, leave a message. So everybody, thank you very much. And Heather Ann, thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much.
So good to see you.
Thank you.
you.